Welcome to Choppin It Up, a podcast powered by Journey, where we talk about freight, how people got to where they are, and their career journeys, pun intended. All right, let's chop it up. Hello and welcome to Choppin It Up by Journey. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. And today I'm joined by Elizabeth Moscoso, president at Moscoso Express. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us.
Thank you also for the invite. It's great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's going to be fun to dive into your story and what you've built in your business. It's always a lot of fun to hear about people's entrepreneurial ventures and the success they've had. Also, fellow Chicagoans, so always good to connect with others here in the city.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So before we get started, the thing that we always like to get going with is the fun fact. So hit us with your fun fact.
My fun fact would be that I really enjoy running. I know that not everyone does, but I enjoy it. Running community here.
I don't.
So it's always fun, and I think it gives a nice balance. There's such a busy day, and you can get a little awake from the coffee. But you can also do it with running. Just a quick little mile run, and then next thing you know, you're wide awake.
Wow. I respect that. I love to work out. I love to lift, but I do not like to run any distances at all. So respect. That's awesome.
Always fun.
Have you been like a distance runner for a long time? Like what's your go-to?
So my used to be in cross country, you could say, like back in the day. But then most recently, I also have been swimming, running, biking, and then next thing you know, the run club community has kind of blown up. That's the new social environment that you could say, and so that's what I've been partaking in, and it's been so much fun connecting with the individuals as well as just going out there, having fun, being outdoors. Especially, we're going right into the summer months, and Chicago summer, as you know, is a whole different experience.
Totally. It's nice to be outside for those 3-4 months that we get some beautiful weather.
Exactly.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and dive in here. I would love, before we peel back some layers, if you could just give us a 10,000 foot overview of your business and Moscoso Express, and then we'll start to kind of talk about how you built what you have.
Perfect. So Moscoso Express is a trucking company. We're a first and final mile provider out of the ORD area. And so that's the 10,000 mile high view area.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I love having conversations with people that have built their businesses, and we've had a couple of really cool owners of trucking companies and different brokerages on Chopping It Up. So let's go back to the beginning. I'd love to learn a little bit more about kind of how you got started, maybe like things that influenced you to want to build what you have right now.
Awesome. So this company was founded by Hugo Moscoso, and 20 some years ago, he ended up having the opportunity to purchase a truck, and he started just humble beginnings, just started driving his one truck, and next thing you know, clients asked for more, and so on and so forth, and he's been accumulating trucks in that manner. You are seeing the second generation of the leadership. Yes. And so the first generation, I would say, established the business, built the brand, everything like that. And now the second generation is really focused on promoting that brand, marketing that brand, making sure that people learn about us more and continue understanding the type of services that we offer.
That's awesome. So love the family business. Love that. So were you involved in the org like when you were younger? How did you get into the second generation of the business?
Yes, I don't think there's any way to not be involved. It's always been fun. Think of it like road trips. And as a child, you love road trips. Yeah. So next thing you know, the family's going on road trips all the time. And I still like them to this day. And we would go out making deliveries. And so next thing you know, again, just continuously, whether it was in a van, then how he started, Hugo just started with a van, his own personal vehicle, just doing little parcel deliveries. Express has always been in the root of it. So really understanding the urgency and the time sensitive nature of the cargo that we're moving has been, you could say, exciting. And so it always keeps things going. And there's always this came up, let's go. And it's just a positive attitude around it. And that has blossomed to where Moscoso Express is now, where we still stay true to the roots of express, and air freight is our niche, you could say. And so therefore we see that quite a bit, and as well as other things, of course.
That's awesome. So what's like your first trucking memory that you remember back in the day?
It would end up being just me sitting in the passenger seat of the truck. And I usually would go inside the warehouses with Hugo and experience that and help label, right? Either because back in the day, there were no GPSs. Back in the day, there was only beepers. And so we would read the map. And if it was in the construction zone, guess what? These new roads exist now or no longer exist or things of that nature.
Yeah.
But we would get to warehouses. I would go inside, help with the labeling aspect of it, writing down the labels, making sure that numbers match. The best assistant, I must say. Thank you. And then, of course. And then one of the fond memories, though, is one time I stayed in the truck. Forklift driver comes in, and of course, it just starts jolting. Not jolting dramatically, but of course, when you're sitting there, you feel that vibration. It's just like, oh. Yeah. That was a fun memory, you could say.
That's awesome. So when you think about what you all have today in the business that you all have built now in the second generation, any differences in like style of business that y'all go after, equipment, stuff like that? I'd love to learn a little bit about that aspect.
Yes, I think it would definitely be the type of business. So the technology piece, I think, is the biggest differentiator. Just with time, technology has advanced so much, and the technology that we now have access to is very vastly different than the technology that was available back in the day. And so that has opened doors for us to not just be moving your standard cargo, but now clients are wanting GPS and to visibility and photos and videos. So all of these additional things that we can now provide for this more specialized cargo, we are now able to do thanks to technology. So not only are we able to do the cargo that we've been doing for 21 years, but also now the specialized cargo, which might require potential temperature monitoring, potential requirements about quality and distance and no stopping, things of that nature.
So talk to me a little bit about the equipment that y'all run. I know loosely, and I'm assuming some equipment, maybe like Sprinter vans and box trucks, stuff like that, but would love to understand the equipment that y'all run.
Straight trucks, some with lift gates, as well as 53-foot dry vans.
It was neither of what I said. Neither of those things.
Yes, those are our two specialties.
Nice.
Big equipment and not ideal for small little roads by no means.
No, absolutely not. So let's go back to you continuing to take over the business here and grow it as second generation. When did that occur? Like, when did you step in to start building the business in the second generation?
So the clearest cut, you could say, is 8 years ago. About 12 years ago, though, is when we really started making that transition occur. And it's been exciting. We made a decision, and it was pretty much like a sit down talk. And it was like, do we want to continue growing this, or do we want to just keep it steady? And is what's the direction that I'd like to take type of thing. And we decided, nope, we're going to stick to this and continue doing and adding more units. And that's how it's been. And then most recently working on making sure that the world knows about us. I think one of the biggest things is you can provide a great product. You can be the best person at working on what it is that your craft is. But at the end of the day, if no one knows about you, how will they be able to experience that amazing service that you provide?
Totally. We talk about that a lot with our consulting clients. And if your target customers aren't aware of who you are and you're not in the room when they're making buying decisions, it's tough. It's really, really tough to get your name out there. So you have to spend time branding yourself and making sure that you're in front of the types of customers that you want to work with. Perfectly said. So question in terms of how much equipment do y'all have now? Like how many trucks y'all running? We have 13 units. Nice. That's awesome. Yes. And so I don't know personally, I don't know a bunch about like the ORD, air freight stuff. So peel back some layers there, kind of explain a little bit more of that like niche nuance business that y'all run. So air freight requires attention to detail to the minute changes. So if the cargo didn't get on the plane
that it's departing from, you have to be aware of that, so that way you can adapt and make changes. So although we may be informed that, hey, this cargo is going to be picked up at 8, if it didn't get on the plane, change. Now, let's just say we arrived. There's so many documents waiting in line. There's certain warehouses that we have to go to, and like other warehouses, certain docks that you go to within that big warehouse. So in the airport, there are very few points of entry into the actual airport warehouse region. So
Right.
being aware of that, being aware of the relationships that have to get built. So there are many long lines. There's going to be confusion. You're going to need sometimes new documents printed. Developing those relationships has been key to being able to overpass those hurdles that come up. There will always be something that comes up. There will always be something that we didn't plan for or that we didn't know. You don't know what you don't know is one of my favorite sayings, because you really just surprise, and then you have to adapt and be nimble in that aspect. And for air freight specifically, airway bills, drivers that have certain certifications, like they have to be trained on TSA items and security. So there's background checks that occur. So there are a few things that have to be done proactively, and one has to be aware of the paperwork and the ins and outs of where to go to pick up certain airlines cargo.
Right.
So those are, I think, the more specific items that one has to know to be a really great air freight carrier.
That makes sense. One of the things that you mentioned that I would love to dive in more to was being nimble. I think as an entrepreneur and a leader, things are always somewhat in flux. Like maybe sometimes people think you have it all together, but it is chaotic, and you do your best to structure things and keep them going. But as you mentioned, like something may not show up. A driver may have to pivot to execute something for a customer, and like that's not in the SOP, but it's what needs to be done. So as a leader, how do you stay nimble and keep your team agile? Because it can be chaotic, especially in transportation.
Great question. What we focus on heavily in our team is how to problem solve. I focus less on this is the structure that we have to follow, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is, of course, that. We do definitely have SOPs, and that has a time and place. However, there's also a time and place for how we problem solve and how we think through problems. So when new scenarios come up, we share and we all get into huddles to try to come up with a solution, right? Whether it's to the point where I'm getting involved, or maybe it's just the dispatch team getting involved and things of that nature, driver, dispatch, that relationship has to be so strong. And we also leverage our training records. So every single stop that we go to, we have a database for it. So whether that may be pictures, whether that may be instructions or just tips from drivers, we have that there. So not only are we collecting information for future use, our dispatch also has access to it. So when maybe the driver's like, hey, I'm having this difficulty, we can search our database, you could say, and see, okay, we've run into the similar scenario, maybe not this exact thing. What can we learn from that and apply here? I think retention is also key. So we can talk about all of these documents and all this data being available, but at the end of the day, muscle memory is the best as well. So again, it goes back to the thinking manners and our team's ability to stay with us for extended periods of time. A lot of our team members are here for years. We're very fortunate in that regard. And we provide a company culture that cultivates that as well. It's very, very important for us. And that paired with SOPs, paired with learning how we think and how we problem solve and why we end up making the decisions that we do, all comes together for making sure that we try to do our very best whenever we're in unknowns and we have questions and we have new scenarios.
Totally. That's a very in-depth explanation. I mean, obviously there's like a lot of nuance to it. And one of the things you mentioned is retention and having a team that has been there for a long time. So how do you retain your team? Like, what do you think you all do that makes them want to continue being a part of what you're building?
One of the big things is that we provide opportunities for transparency. So we have monthly meetings where anyone can join and we can discuss whatever might be going on, whatever question. Of course, there's a safety component to it. But there's also like hey, here are the updates from last month or things that are coming up. But there's also that opportunity for everyone on the team to access everyone in the office / driver team. Of course, we can't hit everyone with one meeting. So that's why it's a monthly aspect where everyone can keep on checking in. So think of it like team huddles. Makes it very easy for people to have that dialogue. The other aspect is the company culture. We really do focus on respect. We don't even use all caps, for example. Like that's something that we don't even dive into. There's certain standards that in the way that we share information with our drivers. So the standardization helps everyone be able to understand how it is that we're communicating and what it is that we need. So at every single location, whether it's super straightforward, you're just picking up, delivering, or very complex, you're recording videos, you have to white glove service type of levels of attention to detail. There's certain things that are still our baselines. The other aspect that also I think stands out the most is all of our drivers are employees. So everyone is an employee. We contribute towards their taxes, things of that nature. And they have a very flexible schedule. So if someone says, hey, I want to take 2 weeks off for whatever reason, I want to go on the trip. Hey, you have worked very hard. I appreciate you. Go for it. And then whenever they come back, they're greeted and they're put right back into the rotation and whatever moves and that they used to do too.
That's awesome. I think that there's so many different ways to consider, like finding different important parts to help someone want to be part of what you're building, but the culture matters, the way that you all treat them matter, like the respect matters. There's so many parts of it. And running a trucking company, I know that turnover is always a challenge. There's just a lot to be done to make sure that truck is moving and that you're taking care of your customers. And so it's got to be a huge advantage for you to have a team that has been there with you for a long time, just way less turnover.
Yes. And people genuinely know that we care. I can go into many, many examples of how, but people knowing and understanding that it's not just the thing that we're saying, but we're actually doing. I think that's another way to really feel the difference, because everyone can put a poster of like, we care about our team all together. Right. But one other thing is, do I hear you when you have a concern? Do we have opportunities in which we can speak? Do we provide little incentives throughout the year, just randomly? Hey, you're doing a great job. Here's an extra coffee or something like that.
Yeah. So when you were coming up in the industry and in the business, were you always interested in the like entrepreneurial build the business aspect, or did you ever think about doing something different?
I've always been interested in this. I've always been involved in it. It's been beautiful to see it blossom the way it has. Yeah. And I also was in corporate America though as well. So that gave me a different perspective to how other people run businesses, how corporations that are international, having to manage and delegate to so many individuals throughout their multi-country and multi-continent team and multicultural team as well. Right now we're talking about having to relay a message that really hits home across the world. And so being able to see all of those different perspectives of how individuals and companies do their procedures and inclusivity and rules also, that has helped me really understand and then come back and bring it back to the team here to try to see how we can make sure that we maintain certain standards, certain inclusivity, certain excitement through it all, and growth, right? At the end of the day, it's all about continuing to increase sales, make it an even better team.
What was your corporate America experience? Like, what were you doing before that you brought over to the team today?
So I was a project manager, usually in construction zones. So manufacturing facilities out in rural areas of the country. Nice. I would end up being involved in some way, shape, or form in the building of them, in the oversight of construction projects. So it was nice, exciting work. And there's a lot of unknowns in that field as well.
So many unknowns.
Yes, so exactly. And so being able to acquire those learnings, understand how people think, again, we just really revolve on that aspect, and how they go about problem solving. And then again, being able to have the opportunity and the platform to apply it to Moscoso Express.
What was the key point for you where you're like, all right, it's time to take this stuff to Moscoso? You're like, let's go do this.
I would end up saying that it was a good entry point where I was able to focus fully on the team. And we were at a point where we had purchased equipment, and we do a very big thing of trying to purchase and own. And so financially, we laid everything out. We really try to purchase and then pay it off as soon as possible. And that way we don't have any outstanding long-term debts in that manner. And that combined with just the time, the stars aligned, and here we are.
That's awesome. So it's been, I know you mentioned 12 years as you've been part of continuing to build the business in the second generation. What would you say were some of the more challenging things you handled as a leader early on? I think there are a lot of lessons that I know I learned the hard way early on in my career.
The importance of understanding your bottom line. That, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways. The importance of always understanding your cash flows and your bottom lines. You can be working really, really hard, and sometimes you spin your wheels. So you're not really moving too much forward. Of course, you move forward in some way, shape, or form. And the learnings that you acquire from those experiences are very valuable. But making sure that you understand what is impacting that bottom line and how do we really improve it even further. Because what we're after is continuous improvement all the time. And then the other thing that I would be able to say is being able to delegate, right? As you're going from the employee perspective to an entrepreneurial perspective, as an entrepreneur, you are filled with ideas. You want to do this, you want to do that. You have so much creative vision and drive. But you're only one person, and there's only 24 hours in the day.
Right.
So similar to everyone here, we have to delegate, and understanding that we find the right culture to the right individual that fits in the culture that you're trying to have in your company, and you kind of take it from there.
I love that. I think there's always so many interesting, fun ideas as an entrepreneur, but there's so many competing priorities. And that's got to be one of the most important lessons I've learned, which is you can only have so many priorities. And after that, the plates start to spin and break. And you have to focus on the ones that are most important to advance the business and also manage the bottom line so that you can still have a business.
Yes. And being okay with knowing that the other person, you might be able to do it in 10 minutes. Taking the time to help this other individual learn, and they may take 10 hours the first time. They may take 2 hours the next time. And then that, slowly but surely, they'll get faster and faster at it, and just being patient with them and helping them learn. So that way you can then also absorb more things on your plate and continue growing.
Delegation is key. It's so scary, but it's so important.
Yes.
And there's just, I mean, as you mentioned, right, you only have 24 hours in a day. And if you're not able to delegate and then sometimes slow down to speed up, they might take a little bit to get it. But if they don't, you're going to be caught spinning. You'll be way too thin, spreading yourself way too thin because there's just too much to do.
Exactly.
So what's the hardest part about running a trucking company that maybe someone like myself that's never run a trucking company might not know?
Trucking specific. It's a very business, it's a very personal relationship business. So having and developing and cultivating for a long period of time, those relationships is key. And every business and every industry, I should say, has their own pocket, their own little niche of groups of people. And for example, if we are talking about ORD, air freight, trucking, they're all of a sudden from the millions of trucking companies out there, you start really diving in and seeing that it's a really close niche community that's there. So being able to understand how important those personal relationships are and being able to leverage them. And by that, it doesn't even mean like, hey, I need this. Hey, I want this all the time. It's definitely not a give and take. It's more like just, hey, let's just share space. How are you doing? How's your business? If you ever need anything, you can call us. And having that type of environment. Maybe they're in the same aspect. Maybe they're not really in the air freight industry. Maybe they're in the LTL space, but being able to understand at the end of the day, the person behind issuing an order, the person behind making a business decision is still a human. So that email that you might receive, still a human that's behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's always people involved in everything that we do. I think sometimes people forget that part. And if you can master that, obviously you have to execute, but people drive everything that we do.
Exactly.
Well, what do you like the most about your business and what you're building?
The importance that it has towards everything. So we wouldn't be able to enjoy what we have without a trucker. So we can get to our travel destinations on a plane, but similar fashion, every single time we go to the grocery store, we go to fuel, we go open our door for our delivery that has arrived. All of that at one point was in the truck. Absolutely. Totally. Everything. And I think that's the coolest aspect of it all. And being in the driver's seat, if you will, of all of that helps.
Yeah, you quite literally are as you and your team continue to build what you have. But I remember getting into freight back in 2014, and I, obviously knew a little bit about, what trucks did, but you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I would have nothing if it weren't for drivers, literally nothing.
Mm. And it's so cool. Sometimes you end up going to pick up stuff and it's just like, I would have never even imagined that these things were being transported on these highways. So you see all these trucks, you just see a rectangular box, but there's so many neat things that are in there. It could be a museum artifact that has been brought over from another country. It could be stuffed animals. It could be life-changing and saving medical research that's being transferred. So there's just so much out there that we just get to have a little piece of a support through.
Totally. So where do you want to see Moscoso go future? Where do you want to see the business grow to?
Moscoso Express, the biggest thing is making sure that we provide the best quality support. So we want to be really key and go. And whenever you think of quality, whenever you think of like really great customer support, we want to be the one that comes to mind.
That's awesome. So before we wrap up here, we always ask something that you would have told a younger version of yourself that you feel would be impactful, and then your favorite book. So those are the two before we wrap.
Awesome. I would end up saying for the first question of what would I tell my younger self is don't stop believing in yourself or dreaming, if you will, as cliche as that may be.
Not cliche. That's cool.
Yeah, having that self-confidence to go out there. If you can dream it, you can build it. Again, I think I'm saying slogans all this time, but if you can dream it, you can really build it. You can get after it, and you can build a team that'll help you get there. So as long as you have that creative vision, that creative direction, then from there, you can accomplish anything. And having that as like a really core idea inside can really help one propel itself with that. And then the book, I would say, I'm currently reading it actually, Never Split the Difference. It was I picked it up. Nice.
It's a killer book.
Yes.
It's a winner. That's a good one.
I ended up getting recommended it, and then next thing you know, I was in another meeting, someone else recommended, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a coincidence. And I really liked it. It has very core ideas, again, similar to what we've been saying. These are very general ideas, but even the act of listening, right? It's so important. And these things that are very basic fundamental principles take you so far. I think That's an interesting aspect.
That's awesome. Well, it's been incredible learning about your story and learning about Moscoso Express. Before we wrap up, where are the best places for people to reach you and people to learn about Moscoso Express?
Perfect. Moscoso Express, you can find us on LinkedIn as Moscoso Express. You can find us on Instagram as the company name as well. And our email, our website, our phone number, 773-234-5408.
Awesome. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.
Awesome.